Hi, I see Alma Ruth. How are you doing? And if everybody, it's evening, we're winding down. If everybody wants to throw in, where they're from, where they're at, that'd be great. I'll start it. I'm in Riverside, California. So I see a lot of people from the West, some people from New York. Okay, I see people from Boston. Nice. Great, great. Wonderful. We're gonna give it a couple more minutes, let people jump in. Again, thank you everyone for joining today. It's been an amazing first day. We've had a lot of great conversations, and I'm really glad to kind of in day one on like a high note. I'm really excited to have the CEO of Cambridge Mobile Telematics. They're one of our bronze sponsors for this event. And I also have Starletta Quarles, who is also the CEO of UrbanX Marketing. She's going to be moderating this panel tonight, or this fireside chat tonight. And so I'm really glad that you guys are both here. Let's see. Wonderful. So we're going to do this. So I'm going to give the floor to Starlette, and she's going to be a great moderator. It's going to be a great conversation. The topic tonight is creating a more inclusive corporate culture, a C-suite perspective, and I'm really excited to get some insight from Bill tonight. It's going to be amazing. And Starlette, I will let you take it from here.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for inviting me to participate in this absolutely fantastic conference. How you doing, Bill? It's okay if I call you Bill?
Yeah, of course. How are you, Starlette?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much for joining us on this conversation of creating an inclusive corporate culture and for being a bronze sponsor. And for the benefit of our audience, we're just going to jump right into our conversation. Just some background on your organization. So tell us a little bit about the work of Cambridge Mobile Telematics.
Sure. Before we get started, I just wanted to say thank you to Elizabeth. I'm so excited that you're doing this, Elizabeth. I'm so excited about the work you put into it, and I'm humbled that you're including us. So good on you, and thanks for having me here. So switching to our company, so we started Cambridge Mobile Telematics, we meaning my partners, Dr. Hari Balakrishnan and Sam Madden and myself, about 11 years ago. It started out of a research project out of MIT, and what the idea was to figure out what sensors on phones were doing. Now the company started 11 years ago, but the research was called Cartel, which was car telematics, and there was a couple of award-winning papers called Pothole Patrol, and the idea was to put phones, remember the old Motorola Razors, or the flip phones?
I do. We're of the same generation.
I know. I'm not as young as I look. Yeah, exactly. So the idea there was putting these phones in vehicles and using the sensors in the phones to figure out telemetry, and then work with the Boston cab company. So it was this real cutting edge about 15 years ago. When we started the company 11 years ago, telematics was very new. And we focused basically on making the world's roads safer by making drivers more aware of their dangerous behavior. If you've seen this movie on Netflix called The Social Dilemma, I don't know if anybody on the call has seen that, but it talks about how all these social media companies use different things to change our brain and change our function to get us to constantly look at our phones. Everything from swiping to emojis, and that's creating a huge epidemic globally for distracted driving. And that's what Cambridge Mobile Telematics helps to really combat. That's our mission.
You also said when you started the firm 11 years ago that you see a future in mobility as it relates to the auto industry and insurance. Elaborate a little bit on that aspect of your firm.
Yeah, so if you kind of from 11 years ago today, we really had an insight into what the future of mobility would be. So if you consider all that's happening in our world today as it relates to transportation and mobility, not anything else, but there's autonomous driving, there's connected vehicles, there's rideshare, there's pay-as-you-go auto insurance, there's um, vehicle diagnostics, computers in the vehicles. And that's really just in the US, but globally, where most of the cars reside, most of these vehicles don't have intelligent transportation systems in the vehicle.
Interesting.
So we've created diagnostic and IoT devices to really track those vehicles. And one of the areas we work in is auto insurance. So the safer you drive, the less you pay, or the less miles you drive, the less you pay. So, but we work with auto manufacturers, wireless providers, auto insurance companies, as I mentioned earlier, rideshare companies like Uber, Lyft, Grab, globally, as
Mhm.
well as connected vehicles and autonomous driving vehicles.
Now, in order to get CMP to where it is today and the organization that it is today, you raised $500 million, which you said you've done in a non-traditional way. So how are you able to raise that type of money without any institutional or venture capital funds?
So clearly, it's my award-winning personality that really got that
Is that
money
what it
rolling.
was?
Exactly.
That's what it
So
is.
I think the way we did that was because we identified early on in the process, and we talked to venture capital firms, but we were very early. It was very early days, and by the time we started to gain traction, we were making money through customer contracts where we didn't really need to raise seed money or A round or even B round. So we raised a number of money through strategic partners. In this case, it was customers, global customers. And then we just kept building our valuation. So when SoftBank came along and wanted to invest, we were worth quite a bit of money at that time.
Nice.
And what a lot of people don't realize when they're, if I can put my investor hat on for a second, and this is for all the participants in the call who are interested in this type of thing. My son is 18 now, but we used to watch Shark Tank as a family. Now, although the zeros are different with our company, the methodology and the principles are the same. So if you're going to give up a percentage of your company and control, you better make sure you're working with the right people. My partners and I were very uncomfortable with giving up that level of control, so we kept grinding and working on our own. And then we were able to raise money in a non-traditional way, as I said, in this case, from strategic partners. The money from strategic partners meant we didn't give up voting rights or control. So when we raised that $500 million, that was for a minority interest in the company. So our post-money valuation was, a lot bigger than $1 billion.
We may have some entrepreneurs in the conference, and as you know, many of the people in tech often think about venture capitalists as a way to launch, their business and to raise funds for their business. You said it's a double-edged sword. What did you mean by that?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question. What did you say the last part?
You said working with the venture capital fund is a double-edged sword.
It is. It can be. So if you raise venture capital, you better make sure that the people you're working with are people that share the same integrity as you do. They share the same. They share the same vision of the business as you do. Because if you're giving up 40, 50, over 50% of your dream to somebody else, they will grind you and burn you and get rid of you and bring in somebody else to just turn their investment around. They are venture capitalists. By definition, they're trying to make money. So they can talk about hopes and dreams and puppy dogs and rainbows and all that, but if they're not the right person to work with you, you be real careful, because I shouldn't say many, there are wonderful venture capital firms and people, and there are some not as wonderful.
You just gotta kind of roll your dice, right?
Yeah, I think, and I share and advise a lot of young entrepreneurs on other ways to do it. A lot of people think that you're going to raise money and then you're going to go to Silicon Valley and you're going to raise more and you don't have to worry about customers or revenue. You just keep raising it and burning it and then you're good. That happens 1 out of 1,000.
You know, at the top of our conversation, you talked about your charismatic personality, which you are very much so.
Thank you.
But
It's
you
very
also
kind of
said,
you.
but you also said that you have to be fearless in business, and that you have these 5 gifts, and two that you lean on are your integrity and your leadership. So makes me want to know a little bit more about Bill. So, who is Bill Powers? You're a Boston native. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I think that I'm very non-traditional for the tech world.
Okay.
Um, I didn't go to a big school. I mean, I went to a big school, but I didn't go to a big tech school.
Okay.
I played high school and college basketball. I came up in a very blue collar environment. I would say that we probably weren't that well off, but I just didn't know any better because it was just simple. You ride your bike to the park and you play and then you ride home. Like it wasn't that complicated. I look at my son now and just all the stuff these kids have. I'm like, man, just
Don't
go to
even
the,
know. I don't
just go
even
to
know
the,
how easy
just
they
go to the
have it.
park. Right. They just press a button and food's delivered to the door. I'm
Oh
like,
my
get,
goodness
get
gracious.
on a, get on your bicycle and go get a pizza. Like, what are you
I
doing?
don't know how to do that. Mm-mm.
No, it's dangerous. Dangerous. Yeah.
No, there's Uber Eats,
Yeah,
right? We were
exactly.
going down to the liquor store.
Yeah, exactly. So that was how I grew up, and I would say that basketball was a wonderful part of my life. Enabled me to develop some wonderful relationships and learn a lot of lessons. Competition, teamwork, collaboration. Not everybody has the same skills, but everybody is capable of having wonderful skills. So I was able to do stuff like that, and
But this
you know,
fearlessness, where did fearlessness come from? And
uh,
it's
I
correlated
mean,
to business.
as long as it's just you and I talking, because no one else is listening, I would say I was probably scared to death, and I had two options. I could be scared or fight, and I just chose to fight.
Fair. Very good.
So I
Very
think the fearlessness came from, my dad died when I was 17. We were homeless, and he was very sick leading up to that. So there was always this uneasiness in our family, and then we lost our home. And I think for me, it was really just about like, we often say in business, work hard, nobody cares. Like just work, just grind, whatever you got to do, just grind.
right. Your academic career, was non-traditional as well, as far as the tech industry and your career
Yeah.
path. So tell us a little bit about your career path from high school to now.
Well, that's a good story. So, I've always hustled and I've always been a bit of an entrepreneur. And I went to a vocational high school.
They don't have that
Um,
anymore.
yeah, well, no, they have them. They're just different.
Right.
Um, so I did that, and then basketball kept getting me through, and then I started doing nightclub promotions, and then from there I owned some nightclubs, and then from there I got into sales, and I did a lot of sports marketing. A few of my buddies played in the NBA, and then so I was just doing shoe deals for guys
Mm.
because they didn't want to give up a bunch of money to like real agents, so they were like, Bill, just talk to this guy. This is when shoe deals used to be big. Everybody had a shoe deal. Now only the
Right.
top players do. So that really just kind of kept me going, and I learned my craft that way.
It's
And then from there, I started a basketball school for children and did like winter clinics and summer camps and things of that nature. And then getting into sales, I just gravitated towards sports marketing. And then from there, technology. And I've met some wonderful people, some wonderful mentors. In fact, one of my mentors is on our board of directors now. He's like a father figure, big brother to me. And he gave me a shot when nobody else would. He saw something in me that nobody did. And I try to pass that gift that he gave me onto other people who I see something in.
nice, nice. Let's kind of fast forward to today and
Sure.
see today and talk about just diversity and inclusion in the tech world.
Sure.
Um, so, that conversation, what would you say diversity means to you, and how important would you say it is in helping with the growth of any business?
Yeah, so I'm going to unpack that two ways. So diversity today is a word that a lot of people, are using more regularly. It's more common nomenclature. So I'm going to step back from that for a minute and just talk about how I view it and how what I think is important about true diversity.
Okay.
So diversity to me is about any human being that comes from a different background.
Okay.
And true diversity expresses itself in age, in upbringing, perhaps race, gender, work experience, life experience. And if you get a proper mix of people in a company, the true diversity is going to bring the best ideas to the table, not just the same ideas. So now let's unpack that and go into tech. Diversity in tech, I believe, is challenging because of what I see as institutional bias at universities.
Okay.
So if you look at technology, people who work at tech companies, it tends to be very like PhDs, artificial intelligence, engineers, computer science. It skews heavily towards men.
Okay.
So then when you peel back those layers, you've got lots of men. So imagine a business and a company. So if I put 15 PhDs and computer science in a room, and they all happen to be men of similar age, they're going to think and nod and get to the same conclusion. Now, if I start sprinkling into that mix somebody with a different background, in this case me, because I have a different background than them, or perhaps some women who have been in tech, or perhaps some people from non-traditional paths and roads like I have gone, and they have a chance to be in a company like ours in tech. We're getting to the true diversity of thought, in the true diversity of life experience, which will get us to the right answer. Because in many regards, the customers we're dealing with have diversity.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when we're on these Zoom calls and we're looking at things, isn't it cool if we can have diversity with each other? Mm-hmm. Because then trust is built. Fearless communication comes easy because you have commonality amongst each other. And hopefully the product and the partnership grows.
In contrast to your definition, your perspective of diversity, how would you say the tech industry in general sees diversity? What does that look like to them when they say we have a diverse effort or a diversity program? What does that look like?
So you're bringing me down a path, Miss Charlie. Here we go. So I would say that
the shame the devil. Tell the truth.
Yes, exactly. So I would say diversity with underrepresented individuals in tech is limited.
Okay.
Because of what I would describe as institutional bias from universities. So tech companies are always looking for the top students from, and I'm not picking on these schools, but 5 top tech schools in the country, or from other countries like India and things like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's my belief that in order to combat this, you have to be intentional. And we talked about this in our previous conversation. So I believe that if you're intentional in how you look at people and how you view. So here's an example. If I have a candidate that's graduated from the best school and both parents have great jobs and that child was destined for tech greatness from a young age, mm-hmm. versus somebody that didn't have those opportunities but had to grind and grow and maybe was involved in athletics, maybe had to pay for their own schooling, like me. Maybe they did some military work. Maybe they had to move around and find different ways. Maybe it took them 6 years as opposed to 3 or 4 to get to wherever the beginning was.
Okay.
To me, that person deserves an extra conversation or 2 or 3, because that person will never quit because they've displayed the work to get there. And you have to be careful because the chosen one or these destined for greatness at a young age might bounce after 2 years because the next big company came calling. And so I'm about being intentional with how we interview, how we recruit, and do we look in areas where people don't look. So if somebody went to UMass Boston versus Harvard, I'm using our Boston analogy. Okay. Why would we dismiss that UMass Boston candidate based on the university? Why don't we dig a little deeper and find that out? So that's what I call institutional bias.
Got it. Got it. But from the beginning of CMT, you had a very inclusive corporate culture. You have a very diverse staff. Talk a little bit about the diversity even within your own organization. Prior to having some, initiative, this is internally what you guys believe from the onset.
Yeah, I think we've always had a diverse company, and we did that intentionally. We have wonderful women leaders. In fact, our VP of HR is on this webinar right now. She has a very non-traditional background, which is really what when I saw her resume and when I saw what she was about, it was blue collar, hardworking, getting after it. When I look back at our company, we had lots of diverse individuals, but we didn't have enough. I mean, we had male, female, gay, straight, Asian, Indian, American, like we had all this stuff. And we did have some minority folks working, but not enough. Not enough. And that really inspired me to say, I'm now in a position as the CEO of a global tech company, and my partners are wonderful with this. I should not take credit because they're wonderful as well. But what can we do differently? How can we look at this problem differently? And I'm not correcting you, but you would use the term initiative, and other people use programs. And I really guard against that, because what I never want to be doing is just playing along. I want to make sure that we're actually being intentional with our work and looking at every scenario differently.
Yeah.
More checking a box.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
I want it to be about the work.
Got it. Got it. But something also inspired your diversity and inclusion efforts earlier this year, and it was the nation's response to the tragic death of George Floyd. You talk about that incident having a personal impact on you. How did George Floyd's death and the nation's response to his death, how did that impact you? Bill, you there?
So it's a really fair. It's one I will attempt to answer very rapidly.
Oh no, Bill, I'm having some challenges hearing you. I'm sorry. I believe we lost Bill's connection. Ah, there you are.
Sorry about that.
Okay, we got you back. I'm sorry. I missed the first part of your.
I think it's me. So what I said was, I think that it's a very fair question, and I will attempt and endeavor to answer that as truthfully as possible. So I think what happened to many of us, us being well-intended, kind, good-hearted human beings, were outraged, saddened, and disturbed by what they saw. That was the tragic death. I think the response to that is a whole separate set of emotions. Yeah. But the overarching feeling that I had was, what can I do to make a difference? What can I do to I don't, I'm not trying to rewrite the Constitution or save the world or tell people what to do. So I want to be really clear to everybody on this call. But I am in a position to make a difference. So the difference that I made in talking to my business partners and my colleagues were, what can we do? And, the thing that I felt most comfortable with and that we did was, I have a very dear friend who I grew up with. His name is Stephen Graham. I think he's on this call. He is an incredibly accomplished administrator from both colleges and high school. He has a couple master's degrees. He was an assistant basketball coach at Yale, an administrator in colleges and universities throughout Massachusetts. He's now working for us as our director of diversity and inclusion. He happens to be African American, but he and I talk about life. When you get to be a certain age, life seems to be very similar regardless of your background. And Steve and I have been talking about stuff for the years about what we can do and how we can work together, and how we as brothers can make a difference. And when this happened, we talked, and I said, how about this? And he said, that sounds good to me. I'm getting emotional talking about this because it was powerful. And we had lots of people that wanted to come do some stuff, really well-intended people, academics, written papers on it. I wanted somebody that knew my heart, I could trust, and we could go right to work. And that's what we've done over the last, 3 months, 4 months.
And you've done a lot, and I want to be able to have you share that, but I wanted to piggyback on something that you said earlier about the underrepresented. Who would you find as the underrepresented in the
So it's a fair question. I'm going to say underrepresented in tech, and my answer will be a statistical answer. African Americans are underrepresented in tech. Some women are underrepresented in tech, and Latinos are underrepresented in tech.
Got it. Okay. So in terms of your efforts, and I just kind of want to get some clarity as to who you were specifically referring to when you talk about the underrepresented, because sometimes people put, things in an umbrella, but I'm sure you had a specific meaning as to what you meant by that. So I just wanted to bring some clarity.
No problem. I'm happy to keep going with it, but if I answered your question, I'm happy to give more if I didn't.
You're fine. You're fine. You talked about some efforts that you've started since George Floyd's tragic death and bringing on Stephen, and you've been doing this for the past 3 months. So share with us some of the things that you've done. I know we talked about a mentoring program and an internship. So talk specifically about some of your success stories in reaching out to more African Americans and the underrepresented population of professionals that you're looking for in tech.
So I would say that, and this is so when we say reaching out, there's only so much I can do.
Okay.
Because, well, no, what I'm saying is there are many people now who want to help and do things differently.
Okay.
But I don't want this to be a check the box thing. So I want to give credit to our VP of HR and our Director of Diversity and Inclusion, Stephen Graham. I'm the executive sponsor. I push for it. I feel passionate about this. But the work that we, to include them, have done, I don't want to take any credit for this, has been, we have a great mentoring program with high school and college students with employees of CMT. Steve went to work.
In the local Boston area?
It's local, but there is one young man who's from Atlanta and moved to Minneapolis. And Steve has worked with him and his mother. The kid's 16 years old. He's a genius. He's a boy genius. And he works closely with some of our employees and our engineers on different programs, and they're just lending their time and support to growing his young career. That is not a checkbox thing. That's happening, I think, bi-weekly or weekly. The first thing we did was start a internship program right away. So Steve and I are both connected into the universities in the Boston area. Growing up as athletes, we have, guys that we hung out with and grew up with. Their children are now Division I athletes at schools in the Boston area. We immediately went to them, and they were going to take, summer jobs like we all did as kids. And we said, why don't you come work for us and learn? It might change. It might really change your view on things. And I'll never forget this one father who did not know me. We played basketball against each other. He was very guarded, and he said to me, Starletta, I need to understand, as an African-American man, I need to understand what you want from these children. And he was reticent because there's another side of this coin, right? There's well, wait a minute, are you just checking the box? Are you using my child? And he talked to me for about 20 minutes, and he called Steve. He was like, oh, okay. Okay, we're good. I get this. So that was the first thing we did. And then we started heavily being intentional with our recruiting efforts. So we have lots of resumes that come in. We've hired 140 people in the last year. And we would go back and say, why was this resume? Now, on a resume, you can't tell if somebody is a minority or underrepresented, But I would say, why aren't we talking to this person with the 3.99 GPA from UMass Boston? And, you know, that's, we went back and looked at stuff, and over the last 3 months, I'm very proud to say we've had 5 hires of people that we have 200 employees total. And in the last 3 months, maybe 3.5, we've had 5 hires and 2 more starting before the end of the year from this intentional staffing recruitment perspective.
Let me tell you something, Bill. I can tell that you're very intentional, because you like to use that word a lot. I can see that, and I sense that. I come from a predominantly all white male real estate development industry. So I've seen fake diversity efforts just for the sake of checking a box, as you like to say, or for appearing to be woke, right?
Yeah, I'm not. I will never be that. I can't. That drives me crazy.
I get that from you. I get that from you, and I just wanted to say I appreciate your genuine effort. I know how hard, coming from an industry that is predominantly all white male, and to help minorities transition into an industry that were not often found in large numbers. And I specifically see that in the real estate development industry because it is my family business, and I've worked with organizations to help bring in students of diverse background, of the underrepresented, from some of these South Los Angeles communities who don't know what a real estate developer is, who don't know about the different careers in the real estate development industry. So I understand the need to be intentional, right? You have to be able to, one, have the desire, the genuine desire, and to have strategic partners. So I see that. I see that you're not checking a box. I see that CMT is genuine in their diversity efforts. And I just like to take some time to applaud you in that. Specifically with what you've done in the past 3 months, which I'm sure there's a lot of companies out there in tech who can't even tout that type of success with their efforts. So congratulations.
Well, it's very kind of you to say that. I'm a bit embarrassed by it, so I'm just going to say thank you and move on. I get shy when it's like.
You ain't shy. You're not shy. Don't give me that.
I do.
I know we have some people in our chat who have some questions that they want to ask. Before we get to some of those questions, one of the last things, first of all, I've enjoyed talking to you. I appreciate the work that you've done in terms of CMT, and I appreciate your non-traditional background, because there's so many people out there who don't come from, particular industries, or are majored in the wrong career, and they really want to be in tech, but don't see anybody that looks like them, or nobody. You often talk about giving people access, right? Giving people opportunities and access. Yes. In terms of your sense of being intentional, in terms of your desire and your efforts to be intentional. You're providing opportunities and access to an audience who often don't.
Correct. And I will say this. I will never hire somebody in any position that isn't qualified. The qualification comes in a lot of different shapes and sizes.
Yes, it does.
There's related life experience, there's related work experience, there's related tragedy, there's related I have to make this work experience. So, sometimes if you lead with a servant's heart, you can definitely help people out.
So you talk about diversity making an organization better, right? By all these differences, and the need in order for businesses to grow, they would benefit from having that type of intentional effort, not a checkbox, not a program, not an initiative. So in terms of where we are today.
You mean like it's got to be more than writing a check to an organization?
It has to be more than writing a check. I mean, you're a model example of, specifically in tech, which is very hard to get into, especially to a generation of individuals who don't know anything about it, who just have internal passion but no career pathway or no role models or no access or opportunities like you talked about. But are you optimistic? Are you optimistic about the tech industry and more African Americans and Hispanics getting into the industry, that tech industries are going to be reaching out more, especially in today's climate? Do you think that they're going to be intentional in their effort other than just checking a box like you've done at CMT?
So am I optimistic? So the answer to that is I'm always optimistic. In this particular case, I am optimistic because I think that many of these, and if I can speak honestly, young people or children who are so brilliant and so smart in terms of coding and related skills without the degrees, that's where I see a huge influx of talent coming from, because many of these folks might not have had an opportunity to go to any school, but they're going to be looked at because these companies now and these universities are digging into these boot camps and different things. And if you hire and give access and opportunity or a chance to those folks, they are going to be rock stars for your company for years to come. And but it's not as easy as saying here's a job.
Right.
You know, it's, you got to make sure that Steve does a wonderful job in this, as well as our VP of HR, Josephine. We have to be ready. It's like if you hired people from a different part of the world,
Mm-hmm.
or a different view of yours, you got to make sure that it's not everybody's the same. And I think tech views everybody the same, and you need to be intentional in how you look at how are things different. But I'm very optimistic that we're in an inflection point in our world and our society relative to tech.
And the time is now. You talk about the time is now to get into tech. And in addition to having the academic background or the experience or the intuitive understanding of the industry, it is about who you know, right? It is about who you know. So again, this access.
Life is about who you know.
I'm from LA, so you know I know. It's about
Yes.
who you know.
Correct.
Okay? And that's part of going to college, right? It's the networking. Sometimes we don't often emphasize
Correct.
getting to know other people in your class as it relates to once you graduate and the opportunities that they may have. But if they don't have any access to opportunities, they want to get in career in tech, then they need individuals like you, right? Who are intentional and who are looking for them to provide them that access and opportunities.
Can I tell you a great story? So there was a fellow who reached out to me on LinkedIn. He's involved with this conference and he lives in Atlanta, and he said would love to connect. So he's connected to a young man from a Southern university. I'm not going to say his name because I think he's going to be a rock star and I don't want to lose him. But this kid posted his resume on LinkedIn, and it shot up on my screen.
Okay.
And I immediately connected with him and said, email me. He emailed me right away. I got him over to Steve, and he's going to be in our process and interviewing. That is fearless. I don't care what the norm is. I don't care what it looks like. I'm doing it. I never would have seen this kid's resume if I didn't connect to the other fellow that is involved in this conference here.
Nice.
That's what I'm talking about. Like, that kid wasn't like, oh man, he's a CEO. I don't want to upset him. He just, boom, do it.
And a lot of millennials, they are fearless. They're fearless in their intention. They don't have some of the same boundaries or, barriers that we had growing up in college, especially myself being a minority going to a predominantly all-white institution. And social media, there's been so much on social media independent of having to go to a 4-year degree. So a lot of these millennials and young professionals are absolutely dynamic and have these skill sets that sometimes I even envy, right? Like,
correct.
Cousins, you got to do that on my phone. How do you know? So, I definitely see what you mean when you talk about there needs to be a sense of fearlessness in getting involved in this business, especially tech, and individuals like this young man who had the gumption to put up his resume on LinkedIn and just roll the dice.
What's the worst that could happen?
Nothing, obviously. He found you.
Correct. Well, right. But I just love the fact that this is a young man who knows nothing about me. Mm-hmm. Okay. And let's be honest. I'm a 53-year-old white guy in tech. So therefore I come with a prepackaged assumption.
Okay.
He didn't care. He didn't care. He went for it.
Nice. I think, Bill, I think we have some Q&A time with our Career Mingle audience. So I'm going to flip over to Elizabeth. Hi, Elizabeth. Do we have any questions that our audience would like to ask Mr. Powers, Bill Powers of Cambridge Mobile Telematics?
Yeah, so I see a question from Jayton Harps. I know you mentioned earlier executive sponsorship, which is really great. A couple weeks ago, CEO of Wells Fargo said there's a very limited pool of Black talent to recruit from. What are your thoughts?
Um,
Tell the truth.
Hi, Jayden. Thank you for the question, first of all.
Right.
Yes, so that was good. I do not know the CEO of Wells Fargo, so I'm not really sure what, I believe it's a he because it's a bank, although it could be a she. So I'm not sure what he or she mean by that. And I'm not sure what jobs they're trying to fill. Hard stop. So here we go, Starlet. It has been my experience that there is a wonderful pool of candidates if you are willing to be non-traditional and intentional in your work. That's all I'm going to say about that.
And that's fair. You did very well. You answered that very well. Nice and sweet. Elizabeth.
Let's see. Rosie Hoa said, would you encourage job seekers to just reach out to the hiring manager on LinkedIn to send your resume?
So are you talking about, Rosie, nice to meet you. Thank you for the question. I'd like to make this a personal conversation between you and I. So my question back to you is, are you talking about CMT specifically or companies in general?
And while we're waiting for Rosie's answer, okay,
in general. So I would say that hiring managers in general are not the best way to go. I would say that if you have a job or a passion or a company that you're passionate about, you should find who you're connected to in that organization and try to get them to be a coach to you and try to get your resume to the department of that group as opposed to going to a hiring manager in general. I think connecting with a hiring manager on LinkedIn is a good strategy, but it should not be the only strategy.
You know, just to piggyback on Rosie's question, is CMT hiring? What opportunities do you guys currently have or that you might be looking for?
You know, I'm sorry, I'm going to fail you on this one. We're always hiring, but I don't know what opportunities we have. A lot.
So CMT is also a career fair exhibitor. So if you guys are looking to see some of those roles that CMT is offering, please check out our career fair tomorrow. It'll be open at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Eastern. And I see another question coming in from Josephine Pascuccio.
She works for us.
Oh, so this should be great. Let's see. While we wait for her to type that one in the chat box, Jaden has another question.
I see that.
What are some tips for C-suite executives to become executive sponsors?
Thanks, Jaden. Wow, I don't really know how to answer this one. I'm being honest with you. Executive sponsors, they need to have the right. Oh boy, I'm going to get in hot water with this one. So Jayden, your question, what are some tips for C-suite executives to become executive sponsors? Just try to do the right thing. Try to make a difference. That's all I'm going to say about that one, Jayden.
Uh-oh.
Here's Josephine's question. What do you feel is the best achievement CMT has made regarding diversity? Like basically, what are you most proud of?
Great question.
That is a great question. I think the overall, so as a CEO, it's sometimes challenging to figure out if people are agreeing with you because you're the CEO or they really believe in what you're saying and doing. And I would say I'm most proud of that. I truly believe that the people in our company are behind this and believe in it and want to help and make a difference. That's what I'm most proud of. And then I would say related to that is personally connecting with the young people who are interns this summer was just awesome for me, because for them to be able to, I mean, we did stuff like, I mean, it was all social distancing and COVID safe, so I don't want to get in trouble with any of this, but some of them are college football players, and we had some professional coaches come in and invited these guys to be part of that, took them to dinner, spent time with them, hung out, got to know their parents. That to me was awesome. That was awesome. And then my son, who's 18, who is not a college athlete, but does intern for our company, got to spend time and make relationships with kids older than him. And that was awesome.
How does it sound like working with you? I work with my father, so.
How does he like working with me?
Yeah.
I have no idea. He's a pain in the butt, but you'll have
Why
to
do you
ask
say
him
that?
Because he's a
I think
teenage.
it's great. I think
Because
it's
he's a
great that you're in the family business.
he's the light of my life. He's the center of my universe, but he's an 18-year-old teenage boy that thinks he's a big deal. And I
But
tell him all the time. I tell him all the time. I brought you in this world. I'll take you out.
Ooh, you've been around some black mamas.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing what you know now, in hindsight, what would you do differently? Anything. And how you built PMP and your diversity and inclusion efforts and everything. What would you do differently knowing what you know now?
I would talk less and listen more.
Why do you say that?
Because I think if you listen more, you're hearing more of the challenges that might or might not exist, and you can be intentional in how you go about fixing those or improving those.
But you're in sales, so you have to be able to talk and sell yourself and sell a vision and sell a product. I mean, the work you do at traffic and being their number one, so.
Again, my answer is the same. I think that talking less and listening more allows you to grow. There's a question here from Bernadette.
Yes. So Bernadette says, from what I understand of diversity and inclusion, it also requires unlearning harmful practices in recruitment, hiring, training, and promotion, as well as learning and adding beneficial practices. What practices have your organization had to unlearn?
Well, thank you, Bernadette. There's a lot to unpack in that question. I don't know that I can answer that specifically. I can say that I think institutional bias is certainly one that people don't realize they're doing. Again, I talked about that earlier in our chat, Starletta and I did. So I think that's something that you have to unlearn and look at different candidates through a lens that is not traditional for tech. I think that's one. I also think that because of the COVID experience with everybody being virtual, that has added a layer of complexity because we haven't been able to, human beings are not meant to be isolated. We're not meant to be separate from each other. We're meant to be, in a pack and learn and grow and understand each other. So I think that some of the stuff that you're asking in this question, we haven't had to really get the full scope of because we haven't been together. I don't agree with your term about harmful practices in recruitment. I think that harmful is a bit of an aggressive term, and I don't see harmful practices. I do see passive practices. I see passive, unintentional, institutional bias and things of that nature. So I love your question, but I'm not going to agree with all of it.
Fair.
No, and I like that you talked about institutional bias. A lot of large tech companies recruit from, schools that have a legacy in tech. Like the Cal Berkeleys, Harvard,
MIT,
MIT, and sometimes when, companies focus on these schools as a recruitment pool, there's some years where there are no like Black or Latin people in those programs, like in that cohort. So it's like if that's your only pool to select from, then you literally put aside all potential like diverse candidates, you know. So I'm really glad that you talked about that. We have another question. This will be like our last one.
Okay.
I do want to go back to Bernadette and make sure that she feels I answered her question fully though,
Okay.
because I stopped and then you came on. So Bernadette, I wish you could pop on the screen or comment or something, but please ask more if I didn't cover it, or please tell me if I did. I can only look through the lens of CMT. So
We'll wait on that. And while Bernadette is maybe adding to that,
so you had another question. I'm happy to take it.
yeah, from Alma Ruth. What is the best way to start getting experience in tech? I used to work in customer service at a tech company, but was laid off before having an opportunity to grow within. Aspiring Latina marketer, perhaps UX.
Let me just read this. What is the best way to start getting experience in tech? So, hi, Alma Ruth. Very nice to meet you, and thank you for your question. I would say that the best way to get experience in tech is just work for a tech company. And it doesn't matter where you're at or where your experience has been. And I would look for a smaller tech company, quite frankly, where you can start in one area and grow to somewhere else. If you show that you're willing and able to grow and learn things, you're going to do awesome. It's all about passion and capacity and work ethic. But that would be my recommendation. You know, I'm not sure where you're based, Alma Ruth, but areas that have a large concentration of tech companies, the quote unquote startups, I think that those are wonderful places to go. And I'm happy to add more to that. If you want to reach out to me, I'm certainly happy to coach you on that a little bit more.
Awesome.
Any other questions, Elizabeth?
No, that's it. Again, thank you, Bill, for a wonderful conversation. Thank you, Starletta.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Elizabeth. This is fantastic. Bill, it's been an absolute pleasure having a conversation with you. Do you have any final words that you want to say to our audience as it relates to creating an inclusive corporate culture?
I would just say thank you all for inviting me to join you and spending your late afternoon. I think we can all grow and we can all learn, and if we talk less and listen more, we might find the right answers.
I'm gonna take your advice. I'm gonna talk less and listen more.
No, you won't.
Listening.
No, you won't.
Awesome. All right,
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Bill.
Awesome.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye,
All the best.
everyone. Enjoy the conference.
Bye. Bye.